Hi everyone. Thanks for joining this meetup. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And yeah, today in this meetup we have like three talks, and our first speaker is Akash. He will be talking about how to migrate WordPress and to Nest.js. So without any further delay, I will invite Akash. Hi Akash.
Hey Kiran, thanks for inviting me today.
Yeah, great. So yeah, then we'll get started.
All right, yeah, thank you. So hey everyone, and I hope that everyone's staying safe. Today I'm going to give a talk on migrating WordPress and Gitbooks websites to Next.js. So this is something that we've been working on over the past 6 months. I'm going to go more into what this was about and what we are actually going to talk about in the talk today. So I'm a platform engineer at Hash.ai. Hash is basically a simulations and data company. And at the end, I'll talk more about what we do and what opportunities others like you guys might have at our place as well. And the subtitle and what I want to also explain more about is basically demystifying Next.js static site regeneration, because this sounds like it's very complex, but you'll soon realize, like most things in modern web development, it's actually quite easy once you understand what's happening there. So let's get into it. So what to expect? Well, recently, as I talked about, we had a migration from WordPress and Gitbooks to MDX. So MDX, so the website that we are kind of migrated all of our docs into. I mean, we migrated it into our GitHub repository. And if you go into the resources section and either go into glossary or docs, you'll see all of the final markdown files, that MDX files that we had generated. And all of this migration, basically it took happened over 3 steps. So extraction, transform, and loading. So we might have seen these terms online before or even studied it during college, but these steps are like a very essential part of any migration that you're trying to do. So firstly, we had extraction, which is the most basic step and I guess the most easiest, which is basically getting the data from the source. And these documentation websites that we had, which were hosted on Gitbooks and also WordPress, we extracted those sources from there. So yeah, extraction, the sources were basically WordPress and Gitbooks. And for WordPress, the extraction step is actually very, very simple. You just go to your settings page, you click on tools, and you hit export. And when you click on export, you'll get a lot of options nowadays. This is a screenshot from an old version of the page. But nowadays, you can choose the exact pages that you want to export in case you want to do a large export or you want to keep it small and very, just export a small set of pages. I'll show you how that XML data looks shortly. So yeah, something like this. Let me go into the code and increase the font size as well. But basically, something like this, it's not exactly human readable because it's supposed to be machine readable, but you get all of the pages which were inside of your WordPress database in the XML format. And you can make some transformations to make it more readable, but we'll get back to it shortly. And then we had data from Gitbooks. So Gitbooks is a platform which basically hosts all of your data on GitHub and renders it as a documentation website. So you might have seen some Gitbooks websites online, but in short, it's like a writing platform, and I'll show you how that data looks. So this is one of those pages which was generated via Gitbooks. So it has some front matter data, like Markdown pages generally have. So a description here, not a title, but that's something we added later on. And then basically all of the textual data in Markdown format. So the H1, H2, and then other things as well. Now, there are custom components in both Gitbooks and WordPress which we were using previously, and we had to convert them into a JavaScript readable format. So I'll get into that as well, because that's actually our second step, which is transformation. So transformation involves basically converting the data into the format that your final destination can read. So since in our case it was Next.js, and with React everyone likes to use Markdown X or MDX nowadays, so that was what we did as well. And there's actually a good reason behind it, because as I'll soon show you, MDX actually works quite well with any React-based platform. So, what is MDX? So, to show MDX, showcase MDX, I'll actually go into the final web page that I had built and kind of explain what we had done. So, MDX is also a Markdown based format. So, you have your front matter here. I mean, your web page would work just as well without having front matter, but it's nice to have that all of that metadata in one place so that anyone can come along and edit it. And then we have the rest of the web page here in Markdown format as well. So you can see it's a Markdown code block with the title of JavaScript. But the difference in here is that we have converted all of our previous components. So I'll go into both Gitbooks and WordPress soon, but just to give an idea. So since we have, I mean, here for the Gitbooks page, we can see the hint liquid tag, which I have converted into a hint JavaScript tag. I mean, like a React tag, and you can pass in the props directly, like you uh, are passing it to a React component. And similarly below, we have a tabs component, which has other children as each individual tab. So you can see that it's basically like any other React library you might have used, or when you create React components yourself. Uh, so yeah, that's basically what MDX is. Now, how those components are injected into the actual page, I'll showcase that as well. So transformation for WordPress pages. Well, initially, as I showed you, we actually get the WordPress data in a not so readable XML format. But what you can do, and I do recommend you to do this, is to convert that XML into a JSON, because we are more used to reading JSON data, and we can also like use VS Code or any other editor to use code folding and other techniques to uh, go through those pages much easier. So here I'm showcasing, basically it, I guess, generates an RSS list of all of the web pages that you had. And then so this JSON data has been converted from the XML data that I already had from an online converter. You can use any tool you want, but I just used an online converter because it was the easiest way to get started with it. And inside of the item key, we have an array of all the web pages which exist inside of your WordPress database. So for each item, we had the title inside of the title key inside of C data. So I extracted all of it out from there for each item. We have a description for each page too. For this one, it's empty, but for other ones, something might be there. So might as well scrape it off via a script as well. And then inside of the encoded C data, we had the actual HTML for the page. So this isn't actually HTML, but it's kind of WordPress HTML. If you've used WordPress's API, you know that it kind of renders it into actual HTML, which you can render onto the page. So in our case, what I initially did for each post was kind of get all of this HTML data out via a script, and then convert all of the HTML to Markdown. So like we have Markdown to HTML converters, we also have converters which do the reverse. So I used some of that. And I mean, you can use any converter you want. So this is just one I found online. And if you dump an HTML file on the left-hand side, you'll get some Markdown data on the right-hand side, which you can use directly. However, if we go back to the original page that we had, so I guess this is the first time I'm showing you how the final documentation website looks. We can say that we had some custom components in here. So you can see that most of these things are clearly being rendered from Markdown. So the heading is being rendered from Markdown. These are pages, links are also marked within Markdown. But this component isn't Markdown because it's some sort of a special table that we have used, or we call that key concepts internally. But yeah. So how this looks inside of the WordPress HTML. So what I've done on this page is basically taken out one of the HTML pages from the JSON and pasted it in here. And VS Code doesn't really know what to make of it, but we'll just go along and see what's happening here. So this is most of it's pure HTML, like we understand, but then there's things like comment in here which says WordPress ACF key concepts. Now I don't know what any of that means because it's all of all of this data has been generated by the WordPress. We don't really need to know about, I mean, care about what it means as well. We just want the HTML data after all. So as we can see, it's like some sort of a JSON blob, but I mean, you can try to parse it yourself if you want, but it seems kind of arbitrary. For example, we have the body tag here. We might have some title tags in there. So this is for the custom components. So instead of doing all of that, what I instead did was hit the web page with an inspect element, and you can go to the component that you have and copy its HTML from here. So you don't need to do this every time. You need to do it only once so you understand how the structure is and how you can input all of the data that you have for this. So, I mean, this is just a good way to compare the data that we are getting from WordPress and the data that final HTML data that we are getting. And you can use this to like convert the page. And yeah, so that was what we did for converting WordPress components. For Gitbooks components, it was slightly simpler because, as I had shown, Gitbooks has custom components in the form of liquid tags. So if you've contributed to a dev.to before, you probably know what this is and have also used it before to create embeds and such. But basically, liquid tags are like HTML or JSX tags, but uh, honestly, I don't know why they were created, but they are slightly different, basically. But this is what they look like. You have an opening tag and a closing tag, and the closing tag is generally prepended by end. So in our case for Gitbooks, the tags were pretty consistent across the pages. So replacing them was easy. We could use find and replace, or you could use regex based matching if you want to. So yeah, in this case, this is what we did. So we have a hint tag here, which has a style prop with the info value. And as you know, like if you convert this into HTML or even JSX, this part will work the same, but you might just replace hint with a capital H or something like that. And below we had other custom, I wouldn't say they are custom components because they are just liquid components that Gitbooks uses. So they might be pretty consistent within your pages as well. So we have tabs here, which is a parent component which has two tab child components, which kind of ends up rendering like this. So there's a tabs container, and then each individual tab basically renders some code block, which we are passing in as markdown in here. So this was also converted directly to JSX. As you can see, there's not a lot of difference in the Gitbook side, so it was kind of easier. But before, I mean, before doing all of this conversion, you also need to know how parsing of MDX in Next.js works. So how does Next.js parse that MDX? How do you introduce these custom components? So, I mean, you might get confused that, okay, hint isn't a default component in React. What is this hint tag doing here? Or, even tabs isn't a default component. All of these are things that you're probably injecting from the outside, right? And we aren't even using import statements. So I am actually using the library called Next MDX Remote by HashiCorp. which is an excellent library for using static site generation to create these web pages. So Next MDX remote actually simplifies MDX by a lot because you don't have to use imports inside of your MDX, which you might have seen elsewhere. So initially, when I looked at MDX, that was what I saw, and I was kind of, intimidated by it. But in this case, it actually gets quite simpler. So I'll just show the basic example that you have here, and you'll get to know a lot about how it works. So next MDX remote basically can read MDX from an external source, and it's different from next MDX enhanced, which is a different library from HashiCorp, which reads it from the file system. So what's different in here and what's also visible in the example? So if we look at get static props in here, and I'll show later on what get static props does, but basically it allows you to run code on the server side for static site generation. So we have the source here, which HashiCorp has manually inputted for this doc's sake. But as you understand, you can also make an API call and get this string data from an external source. In our case, it was a GitHub repo, and you can run the serialize function on it, through which I guess they're serializing the input for their custom component, and once you pass it down to your page as a prop. So this syntax actually doesn't change that much from repo to repo, so don't be worried about it. This is something you'll probably copy and paste once and then forget about. So you pass down your props to your component, to your page, sorry, and then you pass them down to your component by using the spread operator, and MDX automatically renders it for you. I mean, at least hopefully that's how it should work. And so how did we get those custom components in here? Well, MDX remote has a helpful prop called components, to which you can pass an object which contains key value pairs of your components. So for example, I had hint in there, right? So hint is probably a component that I have created somewhere. And after that, I import it from the external source, and then I pass it down to my MDX remote component. Similarly, I might have other components. So I create a large object containing all of the key value pairs of the components that I may need, and then I pass it down to my MDX remote component. So yeah, I'll go back to my slides. So that's how MDX parsing works. I know that this might be a lot, but you can ask questions as you want, and I'll answer them if it's getting too confusing. But that's how our transformation worked. So the next slide is about data loading, but I'll kind of show how a few of those components work. So for example, the hint component that I had just displayed. So hint is, as you can see, a plain React component, and it imports data from the outside. Like it might import React Markdown, or it might import some icons which I might be displaying inside. And this is the style prop that I'm passing in here, which you saw here. So if I go to hint style equals to info. So we have props for success, info, warning, and danger in here. And for each of them, we are kind of displaying a different icon, wrapping the div, wrapping it in a parent div and passing a different class name to it. And so you might see a markdown renderer thing here. So I'll just show the default export that this class has, which is basically a circle outline icon, which is an info icon and a markdown renderer passed down. So what this markdown renderer thing does is basically any children which have been passed down to it, it either renders it as the default children directly if it's not a string, or it renders it as markdown. So there's one tiny problem that I faced with next MDX remote, which was that sometimes it doesn't actually pass down the props as like converted content, but sometimes passes it down as a string. And in case it passes it down as a string, it looks kind of weird because you don't really want your users to see the raw markdown data, right? You want them to see the final JSX. The rendered JSX, not the code, of course. So this is what it does. And I've done this for the tabs component itself, I think. But in the case of tabs, I was able to solve it by adding a new line to each of my pages. So something like this. Each of the tab just passes down the children, and that's how we get the code displayed. And I have the tabs component here, which in case children have been passed to it, we render each child in a separate tab. Otherwise, we are just rendering the single tab that has been passed to it, because NTX doesn't really have a way of telling you whether it's passing you an array or a single component there. So that's how the tabs and hint component worked. I guess this was too complex, but this is the simplest example I can show you. So if we have a cross MDX component, it can be as simple as this: basically an icon imported from Material UI and rendered in your web page. So yeah, I guess that's enough about how MDX components work. Let's go into the more interesting part, which is about Next.js static site regeneration, or the loading part. Basically, how do you load and render that data on your web page? So for loading, we basically used before going into it, the three questions on screen: how is the data loaded in, which I was right now going to talk about, but get into soon. How does Next.js know which paths are valid? So Next.js actually pre-renders all of your web pages as static paths if you pass in an array of all the valid paths to it. And then you actually don't need to rebuild your page every time. You can just keep it for building once. I mean, you can just build it once, and then by passing certain props, you can allow it to rebuild every time some new data comes in. So for the first question, how is the data loaded in? For that, we can go to get static props. So I guess I am at a different thing in this web page right now, but let me try searching in here. Never mind, I'll just go into the code and show you in there directly. So we have this page term.txx. Now again, I'm not showing you the actual repository. I've pulled in these files from the actual code base, so don't worry about all the red squiggly lines everywhere. But basically, this is a React web page. And as you know, by the square brackets around term, it is a parameter that we are passing. So term can be anything, and we are using it for the glossary web pages. So we have glossary / some term in here. So for simulations, we have simulation. For data mesh, we have data mesh. And that's how we uniquely identify each page. And through this unique identification, we also map it with a URL in our GitHub repository. So if I go to get static props, so get static props is where the actual magic for the data fetching and the data rendering happens. There's a lot of extra code in here right now which handles redirects and all of those things, but I don't think we need to get into that right now. We can just focus on getting the actual data in there. So this over here, I'm using awaitpromise.all to fetch 2 data points: the actual text of the post that we are displaying, and all of the posts. I need all of the posts because I'm generating a sidebar where I'm basically showing a navigation for all of the pages that the user can navigate to. So when we hit the GitHub API, I mean, in this case, it's just the raw user content, which I'm fetching. We get that into a variable called post text, and I run the gray matter over it to get all of the markdown, I mean the front matter data from the markdown, which I store in the data variable. And I store all of the actual content from post text. I basically pass a reference to post text via content. And then all of this data is again serialized in here via the MDX, next MDX remote library, and then passed to my page via props. And this this serialized content, which is probably passed in source, is what finally renders the final web page. And so that's the question of how does MDX, how is the data loaded in? So what we are using is basically get static props, which fetches the data from GitHub and then loads it in there. The second question is, how does Next.js know which paths are valid? So for that, we have a helpful function called getStaticPaths. And what getStaticPaths does is you can pass an array of all of the valid terms or parameters that your page can have, and it will try to render them at build time. So in this case, I fetch all of the posts from GitHub. So we have some sort of a URL map, which is basically an array of objects which contains all of the posts that we have, and it fetches all of the terms from it, which is basically, basically it fetches the slugs from each of those posts. And term, it is called term here because that's what we called the parameter in the web page as well. So that's what Next.js recognizes, and we pass all of that data to get static path. So Next.js knows what to pre-render. And the final question about how the pages are kept updated, that's answered by revalidate in here. Revalidate is a prop which allows you to kind of tell Next.js that, okay, after these many minutes, fetch the data again, re-render the page, and display the new data to the user. So, Next.js doesn't know whether the data has actually changed, but at least it re-renders it for us. And this way, you don't have to go back and rebuild the page every time, but get a new page anyways. So in our case, we have set this to 60 into 60, which is an hour. So 60 seconds into 60 minutes, an hour plus one, because GitHub has a rate limit of 5,000 API calls per hour. So we just set it one ahead of that, so we never hit that accidentally. And that's how the data loading part works as well. Now, I don't want to go overboard right now because there are a lot more things I can talk about what we did here. But yeah, that's basically how all of this works. So yeah, happy to take any questions right now. Uh, yeah, Kiran, let me know if people have asked any questions till now. I guess I might have gotten too fast because there are a lot of things to explain in here. But yeah.
Ah, yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm just looking for the questions. I just posted in the YouTube. So people who are on the stream, if you have any questions, you can ask. So I have just a quick question. Is this the company you work open source the MDX remote and enhanced? Both companies start with hash, right?
No, HashiCorp is actually different, and
Okay, okay,
Hash.ai is something different.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you are working there, so I thought your company open source is that.
Yeah. I guess I'll talk about what we are recently building at Hash right now. So we are kind of building an open source Notion like tool which allows you to create your own custom blocks. And by these blocks, you can embed in any regular website. So it doesn't. It's like WordPress Gutenberg, but more open. So you can have Trello blocks which you can embed and data which you can fetch from anywhere. So we are currently looking for developers to contribute to it. So you can go to blockprotocol.org and register yourself as a contributor if you want to. So yeah, uh, I guess that also answers the question of what we do at Hash.
Great. Yeah, I think we don't have the questions yet. So if you have any questions, you can directly reach out to Akash on Twitter. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm at the writing dev.
yeah, the writing job. Yeah, I think he's active on Twitter and he also mentors. You also do some mentoring, right?
Yeah, I try to do some sort of mentoring via Discord.
Great, great, great. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Akash. Yeah. Once again, thanks, Akash. Thanks for sharing your
yeah.
work experience. Great.
Thank you. Thanks
So
for having me.
yeah, Great. So then we will move on to our second talk. Uh, yeah, Shah Jahan will talk about React query. Hi, Shah Jahan. Can you share your screen?
Hi, Kiran.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we can get started, Shah Jahan.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me to talk about React Query today. Uh, so, so today I'm gonna primarily talk on uh, React Query and why we don't need Redux anymore in 2021. So, so before going on, I would like to understand like, are you still using Redux in your app, or if you're gonna start anything new in your app? Um, are you thinking about like Redux? If that's the answer, I'm so sorry for you because Redux was like created several years back, and after React Hooks introduction, uh, things are getting like complicated when you use Redux. It's unnecessary thing. Uh, so I would like to quote one quote by tweet by Ryan Florence. Recently, you must have like seen Remix launch, and he tweeted about Redux. He tweeted like in 2018 saying like picking Redux for new React project is going to be a weird choice. That's absolutely right. So 2 years back when we started, we also like went with Redux as a default state manager, but that's not the case anymore. We don't need Redux because there is a context API. There are good libraries that will make our life easy. Also, like developer experience also will go smooth. Um, so when we choose Redux, obviously the next thing that we look for is like how to fetch a data using Redux. Right, you are going to store some data in Redux, and you need to interact with the backend API. So obviously there are two choice available in market right now. So it's more like whether you are choosing Redux with Thunk or Redux with Saga. Two libraries are there, and good luck with like figuring out which one to use for what. But basically, if you're doing like data fetching thing in React, I think most cases Thunk is fair enough for it. Saga is like too overkill. Uh, yeah, let's go one by one and let's see how we can improve the developer experience. So yeah, let's start with something. So when you write Redux state management inside React, you will be like now today Redux toolkit is there, which is like to it help us avoid writing a lot of boilerplate code, but still writing a Redux state is too much. So for example, you will be like starting with doing some initial state, and you will give some name to a reducer, and you will have some actions. So for example, here there is like to do added to do toggle, which is nothing but like toggling the to do into true or false, completed or not. So this is how you basically start writing Redux code in using Redux toolkit. uh, and the here things will look fine, but once you start adding more and more, you have to be very careful and have to figure out how the state is going to be inside your front end app. So think out a scenario like right now here it's just like we initialize the state, and we have some functions, and then to fetch the data you might be writing in a thunk. For example, dispatch fetch to do is the one of the basic thing that we will do, saying like dispatch a function which will fetch me the to dos. And to fetch to do is nothing but an thunk action creator, and it will be like interacting with our backend API, and then the response will be given. And this is how like the basic workflow of thunk will look like. uh, yeah, but here, usually when you develop a front end app, you need to show like a different state, right? When the request is going on, you need to show loading state, and then you will be showing your to do list. And then if something is deleted, you need to show again, show loader state, things like that. So now to do that, like we have to have some sort of a state, whether the request is going on or not. So this is when like Redux doesn't even make sense for React, like using it to interact with backend APIs. It's not like good tool for request management. So we have to like start again, slightly modify our state, saying like initially we had, if you go back and see, we had only like initial state is nothing but it's going to be an array of to-dos. But now we have to store what is happening in terms of request, right? So again we have to change the state, saying like status is equal to something like ideal, success, or in progress, stuff like that. And to store it in some form, we need another key to store. That's why we call it as entities. So again, like you have to rewrite to the state, all of these things. Frankly, this rewrite is so much. If you're having a production app and then you constantly changing the state, it's not gonna pan out well. Uh, it's a lot of effort for the developers. The refactor effort is also like so huge, which makes like developers go crazy on Redux. Learning Redux on its own is a painful thing, but once you learn Redux, also like you need to be very careful when you are structuring your state and planning out other things. So it's a very cumbersome to just like get a data from backend API and show it in the screen. We have to do so many of these things. And and uh, so, and how do you like, this is like we said like the status is ideal, and now we have the state to store. But once the request is fired, how do we again like store that state, like saying like in progress or idle, things like that. And you have to write another method saying like in Redux toolkit there is extra reducer. Using the builder, you can go back, we can go back and see there is a create async thunk, which will give fetch to dos, which will have basically will have like a bunch of states like the fetch to do, start pending, fetch to do that. So each time when that thunk is running, uh, this state is set up using this callback functions. Yeah, uh, this is to just look fetch a data and add some loading indicator when the request is in progress, right? So you might be wondering, Shah, like you are like showing so many things at a time. What's really actually like happening? You must be seeing so many code and so much of Redux thing. So all of them are like just too much boiler code. Think of a scenario where like this is for fetching to do. You have more and more features in your product, so things will like start increasing, and it will like make your app so complicated. So anyway, but is there any simple way today? 6 years, 7 years back, when Redux was introduced and React was not that good with state management, so going with Redux was a default option. But after React 16, there is a inbuilt state, and then they launched React Context, and there are like so simple state management library. Even the Redux co-author itself saying like we don't even really need Redux. So how do we like do today in a modern way? How do we uh, fully utilize hooks? Now how do we make sure the request management is so simple for users, so that we can develop our features so fast. That's where React query comes in. So it's a time to see like what what is needed to just fetch a to do from backend and show it in our front end app. All it takes is just like 3 lines of code, which is nothing but you have to write a custom hooks. You don't even need a custom hook, but in case like for for the sake of simplicity, I added it as a custom hook, and I'm calling use query a method that is from React query library, and we just have to pass a function which will interact with our backend, like it's just a simple fetch method, a promise method, and it will return the to dos. So all like this is 4 lines of code to fetch to dos compared to what you are seeing here uh, in Redux. So this is how like React query is gonna benefit us a lot. So I'm gonna jump on and show how this can be like improved. I'm gonna do some like coding here. So I'm having uh, I'm gonna exit the presentation and then click on it. I think I can open the link. Yeah. So if you go today, if you go to Redux toolkit, you must be wondering uh, when was the last time I writing Redux? Okay. Anyway, like we can go. Something is happening in my lab. I couldn't open my the Redux toolkit website. But anyway, I have pre-set up. This is an example. If today, if you go and see in Redux toolkit website, they might have an example. So I'm using the same fundamental example. First thing, as a developer, we should do is like change this Redux to React query. So I'm quickly gonna show you how we can like port Redux thing. If I go here in the header component, we are having use state, use dispatch, and then we are dispatching to create a new uh, to do. And if I come back and inside the list, you can see like one second. I'm closing this one and
Hello, Shahjahan. I think sometimes your screen is getting blocked. Is there any problem with your network or computer?
I think my system is like something wrong with code sandbox
Okay.
because I mean our build is so I don't have internet issue. But anyway, if you face this similar issue, let me know. I will stop and then
Yeah.
basically my system is hanging. Cool. Now are you able to see my screen without any issues, right, Karan?
Yes. Yeah, we can see.
Awesome. Super. So yeah, usually you do like you will be using use selector to filter your data from the store, and you will be having loading state as a separate thing, and you
Hello. Uh, sh- yeah, I think we are still facing problem. Maybe you can download the code sandbox and just show in your VS Code or something.
yeah, let me try that. Just give me a minute.
Okay. So people who are on the stream, Shah Jahan is facing some issues with his system. He'll be back with his talk in 1 minute.
Kiran, let me reshare the screen. Maybe due to this
Yes.
video thing, might be an issue. I have
Yeah.
stopped my uh, video. I'll reshare it. Let's
Yeah.
see how it performs. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. We couldn't see your screen yet, Shah Jahan. Okay. Yeah. You can
Is it like
continue, Shah.
smooth now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So where was I? Yeah. Now we can go into to-do list and see, like, we have use selector to select our to-dos, and we have another use selector to see the status. And this is how in Redux, when you're using Redux, you have to write your code. So and this is to render the to-do items, and there is some actions. So I'm gonna go here and start like doing few things. For example, Explorer, and I'm gonna add a React query. Yeah, I think I'm back again. So so if you see what how my reducer looks like, whatever that I shared in the slides, we have to do, and there's initial state, there is a toggle, and there are a bunch of actions here, and there is an extra reducer that is listening for like tunk, uh, and there are like couple of functions selectors to select data from Redux. These are like too much code happening here.
Hello.
Yeah, Kiran.
Yeah. I think once again
That's
blocked,
a
but we'll
stutter,
try.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can feel the same. I'm not sure how to how to solve this.
Yeah. The Code Sandbox has a download feature, right? You can maybe you can download and
Yeah. Mm,
or you can try continuing. We'll see.
on there must be a download action to download the entire repo. I mean, the whole thing is in. Okay, let's. I think must suddenly the whole thing is like. I think it's a problem from Mac update. When I go
Okay.
to screen share, the whole system is hanging. Kiran, do you have any an idea on how to download this from Code
Yeah.
Sandbox?
So on the top left, I think uh, Akash, you can
Export
also
to zip,
guide.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Export to zip.
Yes.
Just hold on for 2 minutes. I will be sharing.
Yeah.
I think after the recent Mac update, the whole screen sharing and video things are like bad.
Did the download work?
I'm opening it in my uh, editor.
Okay. Okay. So hi everyone. I think Shah Jahan is facing some issues. So we'll go with the next talk, and I think he will try to join at the end. So Karthik, can you share your screen?
Great. Just hoping not to have the same issues.
Yeah, looks like Mac issues. Yeah.
Yeah, the new
Yeah. Can you
upgrade.
share?
In fact, Shah Jahan, he helped me fix this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get started with my keynote. So I'll go
Uh,
to the full screen and let me know if things are okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
We can get
my
started.
topic today is going to be a little platform agnostic, but it is front end basically. So you might have heard of the terms cross-site scripting and content security policy. If not, I'm going to give a primer on both of them and uh, how can you prevent cross-site scripting with content security policy. So let's first get started with this. So um, cross-site scripting, the abbreviation is XSS because X generally means cross, so that's why it is. And CSP is content security policy. So what is cross-site scripting? I'll give you an example of the simplest website I could think of. So it's just running on my local host, and it has a simple thing to do. I gave it any name in the parameter, and it's going to show the name. So currently it's showing hi Karthik. So now I'll try to enter something else. I will say hi Betty. So it works perfectly, and it looks pretty harmless as well. But how harmless is it? Instead of Betty, if I try to enter, if I try to send it an image tag with src as something, and I will also pass that on error what you should do. And I know that src as f is not going to work, so on error it's going to show alert one. What actually makes this a harmful website is that this introduces cross-site scripting. Any hacker or spammer can take this query, uh, and on error they are going to execute something like document dot get cookie and send it to their server, load their scripts on your site, on this site. Let's say yeah, it could even be Amazon or something. So had Amazon not made it uh, XSS free, so they would also be able to send the same thing to them, to Amazon, and you might get a link in your email saying something like, "Hey, click here to make your purchase," and here is hyperlink to that notorious cross-site scripting URL, and that's where they'll get you. You're going to open the genuine website, but since they did not make it cross-site scripting free, they are going to get your cookies and send it to their own server or anything. So the XSS vulnerability is going to be troublesome, and hackers can exploit it. So a lot of JS libraries which we currently use in our sites like Lodash, or even we have a lot of parsing libraries. We have a lot of libraries saying that okay, we can run a carousel for also for the search bar and everything. You can have any library from the npm as well. So mostly what they try to do is introduce HTML sanitization, so that so people are not able to directly introduce script tags or image tags to your website through this cross-site scripting, and thus that is the protection you get from those libraries. So visually, I'd like to represent that as a guard here. So the guard you see here, guard or a warrior. So let's assume that your website called my site, in a parallel world, it is a castle, and it looks like this, somewhat like this. So this is your site, and let's say somebody's this is a site slash castle. Somebody's trying to throw some rocks at it, but your guard just comes up and says that okay, I'm going to stop all all the stones or cannons, whatever anybody is throwing, and I'm going to protect the castle. So that means you have a pretty damn good guard here who's going to protect your castle, and you're going to be safe. But what if this happens? The first attack kills the guard, and the further attacks kill your castle as well. So that means you cannot always trust on your guard. Whatever library you are introducing, you cannot always trust it. So that means your guard was not strong enough. And this is a reality because you might have, so even the modern, the most modern libraries, even React, which we use so commonly, they have, they will also have methods that injecting unsafe HTML to your site because that is something they want to give it to the developers. And it is up to the developers to make sure that their site is cross-site scripting free, but not necessarily the what do you say? The power is in the library's hand, right? It's not their responsibility. It's at the end of the day, it's going to be my site, so I need to make sure that cross-site scripting is not happening. So here enters content security policy, and now what's going to happen? Let's say your guard is down, but any further throws at your castle, there's a certain kind of a shield, and this shield is content security policy, the policy which is going to protect your website, and it's going to be an out of the box thing. And yeah, so basically it prevents any of certain notorious injected scripts to execute on your site. And it's not just that. So you might have also heard of clickjack prevention. I used to work in a company where some people from Saudi Arabia, let's say you have a website known as safe.com and you have a screen where you enter the card details, and you commonly do that as well, right? So somebody gets to know that, okay, it's a fairly new website. Why not? I make an unsafe.com and load your website in an iframe and show that enter credit card details on their page. So you might be thinking that okay, it's safe. They are just going to enter the card details and it's going to come to safe.com, right? But actually, since it's in within an iframe, they can easily access safe.com iframe, and whatever card details you enter, it's going to reach them unsafe.com, and you are now vulnerable. So there can be mitigations through JavaScript, like how we used to do early in the early days, where we try to see that okay, if our website is in an iframe, so we check the parent whether the parent is also our site. We are okay. Otherwise, we just stop displaying our website. That's okay to do as well, but how much can you trust it, right? So now content security policy, you can also mention that what websites can load your site within an iframe. If you trust it, you can mention that, okay, uh, content security policy as frame src and the source site. I'll tell you later how exactly to introduce this. Where exactly will this policy come into picture? Where do you mention it? Or you can also mention that none of the websites should be able to load your site in their frame. You can just mention that none, that nothing should be able to load my site in an iframe. And other things, you combine content security policy with other secure cookies settings as well in the headers again. So there you can also prevent packet sniffing. That if two people are talking over a network, content security policy can mention that okay, whatever assets or content is loaded on this page, it should only be from these certain protocols. For example, let's say HTTPS or WSS, and it can block other HTTP, which is insecure. Sorry, which is not secure. Things like that you can mention. So it can also mitigate packet sniffing. So we'll get started with the implementation. You can add this content security policy through the server-side headers, and it can be sent with the HTML, or if you are able to control the server side, you can also send it with the JS or the image files or whatever assets you have, which you are serving from your CDN, from your global edge, from your what do you say, middleware, anywhere. So you can send the headers with them, or as a last resort, or not just as a last resort, but also if you have a very static website, like let's say it's a place to show your resume or something, but you have certain input boxes where you think that cross-site scripting could happen and people can lose their data. So there you can also add the content security policy in the meta tags of your HTML page itself. Like it could be that's as simple as that as well. But the trusted way to go is through the server side headers, because usually we work on bigger sites, and there'll be certain forms, there'll be certain places where cross-site scripting could happen. So that was about the way we can introduce it. And the second thing we are going to talk about is the modes of CSP. So first is the report mode. Report mode is this is the syntax that in the headers, in the website headers, you can see that you can introduce this line that, okay, content security policy report only, and you can start with your policy, whatever you have. Okay, so you can also provide some place to report whatever violations happen on your site. And uh, of course, after you have introduced the policy, you can see where it is getting reported if you mention the report URI. And a browser at the back, it's going to send post requests to that URL which you have mentioned, and you're going to get the errors reported to that URL. Yeah, and you can do reporting mode through server-side headers, but there's a problem that HTML meta tags cannot have the report mode URL. It cannot even have the report mode. So, which is
Karthik,
why servers,
one
yeah.
can there is a StreamYard overlay, right? Can you click on the hide because that is blocking your
Okay,
like
okay, okay,
hide? Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
okay. But if I hide this, it just said, okay, now it's good. No, thanks a lot. I don't know how much would have been missed by now. Uh, but anyway, I'm assuming things didn't go that bad. So now HTML meta tags are will not be able to introduce the report URI or the report mode at all. So which is why I consider it as a last resort thing. So this is the best analogy I could come up with. Let's say you are on a road and you're driving a car, and there is a certain speed detector on, and we do even have it in some other countries where your speed is going to be checked at certain places, and if by that if by the rules of that government, or the road rules, you are crossing the speed limit, it's going to just monitor that, okay, you have crossed 79 km/h speed, and it's just simply going to report it to the analytics. And this is the purpose, this is how exactly report mode works. So to set it in kind of a flow chart, first you should set a very minimal policy for the report mode, and then you apply the policy on your website. And once you launch it, uh, you can see actual violations happening, which you can monitor through the report URI, which you had mentioned. And once you report the violations, you can take a call that what to do with the violation, whether it is genuine, whether it is coming from your site or not, whether there is somebody actually trying to load something which is not supposed to be loaded, things like that. You can judge it, and accordingly you can improve your policy. And once you improve your policy, you can apply the policy again and keep on monitoring. And yeah, and that's all to the report mode. But there should also be an endpoint uh, where should be the when should you stop. So basically, this monitor violation is the part where you need to make sure that you are aiming to bring the genuine violations down. So with time, you should also think that, okay, the violations should come down and down, and you should have a trustworthy enough policy now. Okay, so this is just the reporting mode. You are not actually blocking anything, but eventually you do have to come to the second stage with the second mode here. That's the block mode. In the block mode, you are going to this is going to be the syntax. Uh, it's similar to content security policy report mode. it's similar to that, but just that the syntax is a little different, and it's going to actually block now. And here also you can mention the report URI the same way. It was happening in the report mode only. In the block mode, if you provide the report URI through the CSP headers, you can also report the violations and consume it the way you want. And through the block mode, uh, you can apply the block mode through server-side headers and also HTML meta tags. But as I had mentioned earlier, you cannot have reporting through HTML meta tags. You can just have block mode through HTML meta tags. And this analogy is something like you are monitoring the speed of the vehicle, but the moment it is reported, now the policy takes comes into action and it sends the security guard, traffic police basically, to stop your vehicle from crossing or give you a fine or tell you to slow down or things like that. So uh, this is how the block mode will work. And once you're confident enough with your report mode policy, you can apply it with the block mode. And also, so this was what we were doing in the report mode earlier. And uh, the just in addition to this, now in the block mode, after you are done monitoring and creating a good security policy, you can apply the block mode policy. And again, you can do the same thing which you were doing before. You can again judge the violations and update the policy again and keep on updating it. So you can so you are on the safer side basically after this block mode policy happens, because this is where it actually starts blocking untrusted resources. So all this said, it's not that simple. So the simplest parts which you are going to do once you have your content security policy up is that you're going to see that you'll be trusting a certain URL to serve your images from. You'll have a Amazon some S3 web server which you'll know the domain of, and you're going to mention that for your image domains. And there'll be a certain place where you'll have external scripts CDN on CDN network or anywhere else, right? You can have it hosted anywhere, but you need to mention it in your security policy, and for even for the script, this styling tags as well, styling scripts as well. And even the iframe part would be easy because you know these things are for certain, that you don't need to calculate anything. You just need to see that, okay, these are the things we trust. We need to put it in a policy and you're done. But the toughest part of the whole implementation would be the XSS, cross-site scripting. And you will have to mitigate inline script tags because you don't want any of the notorious script tags which you don't want to run on your site. But at the same time, you cannot ignore the fact that there are certain inline script tags demanded by analytics and marketing tags, which recommend that you need to have inline script tags on your website. Even Google Tag Manager is a good example that they do demand for a inline script tag, and you cannot load it from an external resource. But you need to make sure that the script tags which you are including, they are trusted. So what do you do? So browser in the background, it does a lot of things. So now uh, there are two ways to allow the inline script tags. You can basically calculate the uh, SHA encryption of your script tag and attach it to the CSP header. And you can consider that while your website is being built, uh, and uh, and once you have deployed it, you can at the build time you can calculate this SHA and add it to the server side. And in the CSP header, you are going to get this SHA along with the inline script tags. And that's how, when it comes back to the browser is going to see that this is the SHA which I am supposed to trust for the inline script tags. And it sees any of the script tags, it's going to calculate the SHA. And if it matches, it is going to run that inline script. So a flowchart kind of demonstration here. Let's say you have an inline script tag like document.add event listener, and on load you do something on the page load. And so first you take this, you extract out the script, You get rid of the script part. You calculate a SHA 256 of the same. You get the SHA. You add it to your CSP headers, and you have the same. And you add append it to your content security policy, and that's how you go about it. And browser is going to take care of it. Or if you don't want to calculate the SHA, if it is getting too tough for you to take care of, okay, these are so many things, so many inline tags, inline scripts I need to take care of, that's getting heavy for you. So you need to attach a randomized unique string known as nonce, and it will be added to all of the script tags as an attribute, as well as it needs to be added as a attribute to your inline scripts, as well as it will be added to the content security policy. But the demand is that on each reload of a website by any of the user, there needs to be a unique nonce, and that's a challenge because that will need a heavy server client communication based on your architecture. So yeah, as I said before, if it's a small site, you can add it in your HTML meta tags. There is no server backend communication needed, and it does not support reporting. And if you don't care about it, it's fine. Uh, you can add it like in your HTML, plain HTML. You can just go ahead and add this. It's going to take care of the security of your website. So it also depends on the front end architecture which you are following to deploy your websites. And accordingly, you should take a call on the implementation. And we will have different ways how our website goes online. It could be a proper backend. It could be server-side rendering. It could be global edge server, middleware, Lambda edge, or even a purely static HTML. So based on this, you should take a call. And it all in all, it should be a continuous process. It cannot be just a one-off thing. So I agree. Initially, you're going to have a lot of effort here, but gradually the effort keeps on decreasing. You just keep on updating the policy, and your website will continue to be secure. So some good links to follow would be this Alefenu. So it's kind of a genius website where it gives you challenges to make the website. You're challenged to introduce any cross-site scripting attack to the website, and you will see if it passes or not, and eventually step by step you're going to reach certain level. And other popular sites are you can just go to the network tabs of Twitter or MDN and see how it looks. So let's say we are on Twitter. They do a lot of things on this content security policy, and so does MDN. So in the network tabs, if you just check the
Karthik,
first
I
drop,
think
yeah,
Karthik, sorry for disturbing. I think we got that black screen problem again. Can you move back to your slides once again?
okay. Do you see my slides now?
No. Maybe
Okay.
can you try stop sharing and reshare?
Huh, yeah, yeah. Have you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So where was I? So yeah, I'm on Twitter. So while the time the screen was blank, I just opened up Twitter and I went to the docs in my network tab. So the first doc which is loaded is the home page, and here you can see the content security policy. And this is in block mode. It's not in report mode, and it has a connect src, which websites to connect it to, and what images to pick this from. And they also have a nonce here, which is a randomized unique string, and it's supposed to change on every reload. And they also have a report URI at the end. This is where they are going to collect all the violations of the content security through the content security policy. So internally, Twitter will be able to see what all things are going to be blocked. So yeah, you can visit various websites. They are going to have this tag here. And I just had one slide remaining. Mm. Yeah. So yeah, these are the links, and thanks a lot for listening. And if you want to know more about me or connect with me, this is my online hosted portfolio, and you can check all my links there. Uh, that's all. That's all I had. Any questions? You can post in the comments. I can take it.
Yeah, nice talk, Karthik. Really useful.
Okay, thanks.
Um, yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask now. Will there be any performance impact in the sense, because of that policy is very big, right? Uh,
Hmm.
will there be any performance impact on uh,
Uh,
network
uh,
calls?
I I did not see any performance impacts once I had started using this. So I only went for report mode till now, uh, and there were no such. It's just simply making some. It's just if it sees any of the violations, it's just going to make the post call then, and it's going to be async, and it's not going to stop your site from loading any other thing. So it's not. I don't believe that it's going to be much of an impact. Uh,
Okay, I think Akash has one problem.
uh,
Is
yeah,
it a
he's asked.
built-in feature?
Yeah, Akash, it's a built-in feature, and every site has a lot of sites are doing this for a long time, and it's a must nowadays for any kind of attacks. And uh, also, if you might have seen, the hashing was a pretty good example of how we believe that it's a built-in feature, because uh, whether or not you have a content security policy, the browser is going to calculate the SHAs, the SHAs of each of the inline script tags, and that's how I think it's going to confirm whether the SHA which you have sent is the same or not. So it is pretty much built in.
Great, awesome.
Uh, yeah.
One more thing, I think people are asking for the links. Can you
Hmm.
put those links you have in the comment section?
Okay. Comment on YouTube, right?
Yeah, you can put it in the private chat. I can post it in the
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay. 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 I'll do that.
Shahjahan, meanwhile, can you try sharing your screen? We will see. We will try to continue your talk. So if you have any questions for the Karthik, you can ask now. Otherwise, we will move to the next talk. I think some people are asking for, I think Rangaswamy is asking for the links. I think we'll put it in the YouTube comments in a couple of minutes. Karthik, I think we have one more question for you.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
question is about, can you explain about clickjacking?
Oh, okay. So, Pratik, uh, just consider that. I'll give an example. In our college days, we were asked to build an HTML page easily. So I was just joking with my friends that, okay, I'm going to uh, capture the edu of my website, of the college website, and I'll just load it in an iframe. So basically, in short, I've made the iframe. So uh, the bad thing is, why I was able to load it in an iframe is a problem in itself. Your website should generally not be able to be loaded in an iframe, because when it happens, this is clickjacking is basically, I think the origin might be from hijacking, that you hijack something, you get into that network and behave as the owners of that. So what's going to happen is, let's say you in the example I said, you had something like safe.com. Somebody will see that, okay, your domain is pretty new, so they will just make a new website which is going to look very much similar to yours, and in the background, it's just going to load your website in their iframe, and people are going to believe that it's your website. It's your website which they are opening. So you also lose the trust there that okay, people are able to open your website as their own, and they are going to enter the credit card details to a page. And since the parent window has an access to the iframe within, I mean, there can be ways to do that. If not simple, but it's still possible that you can capture whatever the user is entering. You can take a snapshot. You can keep the credit card details with yourself, and proceed further. And attacks like this have happened before. So that is clickjacking. Did that answer your question, Pratik?
Yeah, makes sense.
Uh,
Uh, so any other questions for Karthik? Yeah, I think that's all the questions we have. Yeah, if you have more questions, I think this is a really interesting topic. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to uh, Karthik directly. I think I posted the links on the comments. Yeah, thanks, Karthik. Thanks for sharing
Thanks a
that
lot,
insightful.
Kiran, for this.
Yeah. Uh, Shah, Shahjahan, we'll try to continue our talk. Uh, yeah,
Hey, Kiran. Hi.
yes, yes. Maybe
Sorry
can you
about the
click on that
incident
hide?
happened.
There is a StreamYard overlay. Can you click on the hide at the bottom? Yeah,
Okay.
you can click on the hide button.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, we can get started.
Yeah. Anyway, like, sorry about the incident. I thought like code sandbox are an easy way to share things. Anyway, I hope you can see my entire screen. We have two apps. Uh, one is React Query, another one is Redux. Uh, you cannot differentiate one from the other when you see this screen. So we have like this functionality. Uh, so if you see, these are like when you click on the completed, it will dispatch some actions. When you click on this button, it will do some actions. So this is like completely built on Redux toolkit. But the same example, I have done this, ported that app into React Query. So same functionality, nothing like different. You can have all this mark complete. All the logics are similar, and I will show the code. Then you will see how great is React Query, how much productive it is to use in application. Uh, so I have like uh, my VS Code here. Here, this is the app, and I'm in the header. If you can see, uh, by default we use dispatch, and whenever we hit enter, we need to add a to do. So we dispatch a tunk uh, based action. So this is like save new to do is action created via creates async tunk that I showed in the slides. So nothing but it is hitting API and it is showing in the uh, thing. So yeah, the same thing. If you go back in the React Query code, this is React Query. This is done via React Query. If you see here, I have one custom hook to post the event, whatever on enter we need to send that text to backend. So this is a hook that I have written, and it will return east loading state where I can simply show the placeholder If it is loading, I can show the loader. And if I go here inside my custom hook, it's very simple. I'm using use mutation hook from React Query, and I have a function to interact with my backend. It's simply like whatever text that I'm passing it from here will be passed down to my function. And yeah, that's it. It is under request, and then everything will work just fine. And comparatively, the same code. This is the entire thing that's needed for creating a simple to do, right? This one line, and then this is like the whole function. I'm going to switch to Redux example. The same example, like I have to maintain a state here for like what is the status, and I need to dispatch the function, and I have to say like before dispatching I have to set is loading, and after dispatching I have to say idle. And then normally our component logics will be here, but this is to switch between one state to the other. And inside this function you have to create the thunk, and change the state you have to add in the builder function, saying like when pending, change the status to loading. When it is fulfilled, change the settings to idle, and add the all the states coming from the payload to the adapter. This is like too many code. You have to like think of a scenario. You are writing a one more feature like to fetch the post. You have to rewrite this kind of thing again and again. Either you have to in Redux you have to write a middleware to handle these things. It simply like complicate the problem. And it will like look even easier if I show you a sample where like this is for adding a to do. If I go here in my to do list component to just show the list of to dos here, right? um, I have my custom query, and this is the use query that is coming from React Query package. And this I said like get the to dos from this endpoint and return it. That's it. And this is the whole hook responsible for me fetching the to dos and showing it in the component. Like I'm taking the data and saying like is loading. If it is loading, show the loader. Otherwise, list render all the to do list item. So I'm switching back to Redux example. The same example, if I go here to do list, I have to say like select from the data store using selector, and I have to select the status from again the separate key, and how to do this thing to select the data. So I have to dispatch the request, and after it's dispatch it will store it in the store, and I have to get the value from the store by doing some sort of a selector functions, right? This is like writing like to do simple one thing, we have to write like 3 to 4 functions to achieve it. But in React Query, if you are interacting with an API, just have a query, give a query name, and tell the promise function, and that's it. React Query will take care of loading the data to your component, and you can use it. I will show where the power of React Query lies in. This is like this is main here we are doing like request management. We are requesting some data from backend. If I go inside the list item, if you see here, I'm using one more hook from React Query, which is nothing but React Query client. And whatever the name that I gave, I'm taking the data from there and finding the to do. So without doing anything, like it's a normal hook way of writing things. Once the learning curve is very simple, and that there won't be any like logic to understand like how Redux pattern works. That there is nothing here. Once you know React, once you learn about hooks, you can very well use React Query without any issue. So similarly, like we are getting the data from the cache and showing the each to do here. Uh, yeah, that's it. If I am deleting something, I'm simply saying like get my old whatever the old values and like delete it. So these are like when you see these functions or handlers, it will be like very simple and much dev friendly to understand, uh, rather than you uh, complicating things. Like here like inside to do list item, I'm dispatching an action. Inside that I have to go here and see what's really happening. uh, the to do items, basically like the I can simply say like 3 lines versus writing like 20-25 lines of code to just do a one simple operation. So there are like dev tools attached to React Query, so you can see what is the data available here and what is the time, and I can see like what is the state here. So each and every details are there in the dev tools as well, similar to how it will be in Redux dev tools. So yeah, this is it. Like if you are uh, primarily interacting with the API, fetching data from server, your best option is uh, using like this kind of a server state manager like React Query SWR packages, rather than complicating your app using Redux. Redux is not built for like request management or storing server side data. So same simple to do can be built uh, just in 20 minutes in React Query, compared to writing the whole bunch of code in Redux. So uh, it will enhance the developer productivity. You will be writing less code, and you need not to worry about like lot of learning happening in Redux, which is like not necessary in today's React ecosystem. That's about it. Uh, if you have any doubt, just let me know. I hope uh, um, everything made sense. Sorry for the interruption that happened earlier. Kiran, I think you are in mute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Shahjahan. Nice talk. I think it looks like you are a good fan of Friends. Like
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
just
gifs.
want to. I wanted. I mean, each presentation I use different favorite movie items or TV series. This time I went with
Yeah,
Friends.
I think Akash is also saying the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Karthik is saying, uh, no.
Do check out React Query, uh, and you can, there are like bunch of examples there. So you can very well do whatever that I just shared, and there are like bunch of examples here which will enhance. Trust me, we've used Redux before in our production, and we slowly migrated to React Query, and there is zero regrets in moving to React Query. And I think this is the way forward in React ecosystem, both in Next.js as well, and in the recent remix framework as well. Like people are uh, encouraging this practice rather than using Redux for all the things. Basically, if you're having some sort of front end state management, Redux is good, but 80 to 90 percentage of the case is going to be like interacting with the backend APIs and presenting the data in the front-end application. So for that, React Query is the best tool that you can get to it.
Yeah, I think Akash is asking one question. Maybe you can share your opinions on GraphQL versus REST. Uh, so have you tried GraphQL, or do you have any opinions on GraphQL versus REST?
Actually, like I haven't used GraphQL in production, but yeah, primarily I have only know like REST. But these things are these kind of tools are grown because of GraphQL. There is a tool called Upline. So
Yeah,
the React Query is inspired from that. So I believe from the surface level, I think GraphQL is much better in terms of data fetching and for efficiently fetching data from backend. compared to REST. But anyway, React Query will work with REST as well. GraphQL doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I tried GraphQL before. It's really interesting thing. Just that in terms of adaptation, right? Again, it's something new, and there is a lot of learning curve, and and as a GraphQL is something that need to be implemented on backend as well. So there will be like a lot of inertia there as well. So otherwise, there are a lot of interesting ideas on GraphQL. Uh, Shahjahan, I think can you share your sandbox links in the private chat? I think some people are.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Just give me a second.
But one interesting thing about GraphQL is, Facebook also has one more framework called Relay, and that that is inspiring a lot. I mean, a lot of new changes that are coming in the React, right? The concurrent features or whatever. So a lot of those features are experimented in Relay. So there is a kind of constant feedback loop between Relay and React to make React much better. So eventually, all the features, like in future, right? uh, React will have support for fetching the data as well. They are implementing some features which will help or make easy for data fetching as well. So those features are first experimented in Relay. So that's one major contribution of GraphQL there. Yeah, yeah. I shared the code sandbox links in the YouTube comments. You can take a look. Yeah, if you have more questions, you can try to reach out to Shahjahan on Twitter. Uh, yeah, thanks for the nice talk and demos, Shahjahan. Uh, yeah, I think that's all the talks we have for now, for today. I think we have really interesting three talks, Akash, Karthik, and Shahjahan. I think we learned a lot today. Uh, yeah, so maybe we'll have one more meetup next month in January sometime. Um, and we are getting a lot of holiday season, right? And the new year is coming. Enjoy yourself, and we'll meet again next month. See you all.